and welcome to episode 29 of Book Club. This book is from Usborne and is called Law from Beginners, part of the series, and the newest book. It introduces law to children and explores many themes such as criminal and civil law. It asks big questions like, do prisons work, and refers to real events. This book explains law in a simple way to budding readers. I highly recommend you read it. I'm going to choose this chapter to read. Law across borders. You can send a letter anywhere around the world. You probably never thought about it, but it's only possible because every country has agreed on a common system for mail. There are all sorts of international agreements like this. They are part of a collection of rules and laws known as international law that sets out how countries can work together to solve problems. What is an international law? Most international laws are called treaties, agreements made by governments that help their countries work together. They affect how people communicate, trade, and move around the world. Here are a few examples. I'm going to Mexico to learn Spanish this summer. Countries sign agreements to allow planes to fly over and land in their country. Air transport agreement. The weather forecast says it will rain tomorrow. European countries have signed a treaty to create a joint weather forecasting agency. European Weather Treaty 1975. When will the government commit to reducing the amount of pollution we produce? Groups of countries can sign treaties promising to work together to solve big problems. It's so tasty! Some of the food you eat is probably grown or made in another country. Countries sign treaties promising to follow rules to make sure that the food is safe to eat. Food Standards Agreement. Approved. Hi Grandma, how's life in Sri Lanka? You can make calls abroad because almost every country in the world has signed treaties on costs and communications equipment. International laws aren't always written down. Some start out as customs, unwritten rules that countries have been following for a while. My family just arrived in this country after fleeing a war back home. Governments often make rules about who's allowed to move to their country, but they can't turn away refugees, people fleeing from a dangerous situation in another country. This has been an international custom for a really long time. Does everyone around the world have the right to go to school? Yes, international laws give the same human rights to everyone, but they're not always respected. International countries can adopt international laws as part of their own laws. If I robbed a bank and ran away to another country, would I get away with it? Probably not. Countries sign agreements promising to work together to catch international criminals. Find out more on page 72. Treaty on Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters. Signing a treaty is like signing a contract. Countries then have to do the best they can to stick to the agreement. If a country breaks an agreement, it can be tried in an international court. Find out more on page 65. A record of all treaties and other international laws is kept by the United Nations, an international organization of which almost every country in the world is a member. How international law works. International law mostly developed after the Second World War. In 1945, to try and avoid more wars, leaders from around the world set up an international organization called the United Nations, UN. The UN sets rules for countries to follow and helps them settle arguments peacefully. Common rules. Almost every country around the world is a member of the UN and agrees to follow its rules. Here are the most important ones. Don't use force against other countries except in self-defense. Solve problems and arguments with other countries peacefully. Respect human rights. Don't interfere in another country's affairs. Respect international law and keep promises made in treaties. Countries can debate new rules every year at the General Assembly in the UN quarters in New York. Each country sends a person called a delegate to represent them. If a country breaks any of the rules or threatens peace, the UN Security Council can take action and impose sanctions. This can include making it illegal to trade goods with that country. The Security Council is made up of 15 countries, 5 permanent members, and 10 others that are elected every 2 years. Settling disputes. The UN's International Court of Justice in the Netherlands exists to settle arguments between countries, but only if both countries agree to have the case heard by the court. Cases are heard by 15 judges elected from around the world. You didn't tell us you were building polluting factories by the river on our shared border. We did tell you, and we use the greenest technology we can. Uruguay should have told Argentina sooner, but we think the factories are safe enough to go ahead. I disagree, but I've been outvoted by the others. Punishing people. Sometimes countries can't or don't want to deal with very similar serious criminal cases. In these situations, the accused can be tried in the International Criminal Court, ICC, whose judges are also elected from all around the world. The ICC deals with crimes against humanity, such as mass murder, slavery, and torture. It also hears cases of war crimes, such as using child soldiers and genocide, the deliberate destruction of a group of people because of their nationality, region, or race. Is war legal? Using force or threatening to use force is usually illegal, but there are some situations where it's considered okay. In which of these situations do you think it might be legal to use force? A. To conquer land for a growing population back home. B. To bring order to a country that is having a revolution and changing its government. C. To help defend a country that's being attacked. D. To defend yourself against the country that's attacking you. E. To stop a government committing genocide, which is the systematic destruction of a group of people. Under international law, it's illegal to use force in self-defense. Example D. It's also legal for the UN Security Council to authorize the use of force against a country that is threatening world peace. Example C. But that rarely happens. Some countries argue that it should be legal to use force to protect everyone's human rights in other countries, example E, but not everybody agrees. What do you think? Using force and interfering what's going on inside a country is illegal, but doing nothing is immoral. I think it's okay to use force to protect vulnerable people. Countries must try doing everything else to help before using force, though. The laws of war. If a war does break out, for whatever reason, there are special laws that apply to all countries in the world. These developed from a treaty first drafted in 1864, known as the Geneva Convention. Here are some of the most important rules. Attacks should only be on military targets, such as air bases. This means it's illegal to target schools, hospitals, or places of worship. People who aren't involved in the fighting, known as civilians, must be protected. Armies have a duty to look after their prisoners of war, people from the other side that are captured, to stop them fighting. International organizations that help victims, such as the International Committee of the Red Cross, must be allowed to do their job. It's illegal to use certain weapons, such as poisonous gas, which hurt everyone, not just soldiers. Armies should care for the wounded, even from the enemy side. In wartime, causing unnecessary suffering, such as deliberately attacking civilians, is described as a war crime. Under international law, countries whose armies have committed war crimes should make up for it, for example, by giving money to rebuild a damaged city. If you're new to my channel, it's called Candy Corn Book Club. If you like my videos, click like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Look out for more videos. See you next time. Bye!